Imagine an emperor, not a ruler, not a statesman, a man who lived for one thing only: the arena, the blood, the sound of a body hitting the sand. 180 AD. Rome has a new emperor. His name is Commodus. He is 18 years old. His father was Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, the man historians still call one of the greatest rulers who ever lived. His son was not that. Commodus took the throne and immediately did something no Roman emperor had ever done. He went into the arena, not to watch, to fight. He dressed himself as Hercules, lion skin, club, the whole thing. He fought in the Colosseum before thousands of people. He won every single fight. And nobody mentioned the obvious reason why. His opponents couldn't fight back. Men who had been wounded in real wars, men who had lost limbs, men who could barely stand, brought into that arena specifically because they had no chance. He killed them, one by one, in public, and called it sport. But the arena was only the beginning. In the corridors of the palace, the real horror hadn't even started yet. Not even close. And the crowd cheered. Every single time, thousands of people, Roman citizens, dakij, on their feet, applauding a man who had just beaten a one-armed veteran to death with a club. That is the world Commodus lived in. That is the world he created. A world where the emperor could do anything, where nobody could say stop, where the only rule was whatever he wanted. To understand how Rome got here, you need to go back to the beginning, back to the man who should have prevented all of this, his father. How does the wisest man in Rome raise a son? And that son becomes one of the most disturbing emperors who ever lived. Marcus Aurelius ruled Rome from 161 to 180 AD. He wrote Meditations, a book about self-discipline, humility, and the responsibility of power. Philosophers still read it today. He spent his reign fighting wars he didn't want to fight, governing an empire he found exhausting, writing privately about how he tried to be better every single day. He was, by almost every account, a genuinely good man. The people who knew him described him as perfect from the outside and completely empty on the inside. That was not Marcus Aurelius. That was his son. Commodus was born in 161 AD, the same year his father became emperor. He grew up inside the palace, surrounded by tutors, philosophers, advisors. Every resource the Roman Empire could offer was pointed at this one boy. The result was Commodus, physically impressive, tall, strong, handsome, but underneath that, vain, easily bored, and completely uninterested in governance. His father brought him on military campaigns, tried to teach him leadership. Commodus hated it. He chose the fake applause of a crowd over the real weight of an empire. When Marcus Aurelius died in 180 AD, Commodus did the first thing any reasonable heir would do. He immediately ended the war and went home. Rome celebrated. The soldiers were relieved. The Senate cautiously hoped for the best. They had no idea what was coming. Nobody ever does. What made Commodus dangerous wasn't just cruelty. It was the gap. The gap between what he should have been and what he chose to become. His father had spent years preparing him. Military campaigns, council meetings, philosophical education. Marcus Aurelius brought his son to the front lines of war specifically so he could see what ruling an empire actually costs. Commodus saw it and walked away. He didn't want the weight. He didn't want the responsibility. He wanted the power without the burden, the applause without the sacrifice. And for 12 years, Rome paid the price for that choice. But here's what makes it truly dark. Commodus wasn't stupid. He was physically strong, charismatic, intelligent enough to survive every conspiracy thrown at him for over a decade. He chose this. Every day, for 12 years, he chose it. The first few years were almost normal. Commodus governed. He listened to his advisors. He wasn't Marcus Aurelius, but he wasn't a disaster either. Then came 182 AD. His own sister Lucilla organized a conspiracy to assassinate him. The assassin got close, very close. He drew the blade, and according to some sources shouted, "The Senate sends you this." Then he hesitated. That hesitation saved Commodus, and doomed everyone else. He became paranoid, suspicious of everyone. He began executing senators, not because they had done anything, but because he thought they might. The people had cheered for him at first. Now they just hoped he wouldn't notice them. But the paranoia was almost secondary to something else. Because Commodus wasn't just becoming cruel, he was becoming delusional. He began to identify himself with Hercules, not as a metaphor, not as a title. He genuinely believed he was the reincarnation of the demigod. He had statues of himself made as Hercules. He wore a lion skin everywhere. He carried a club. He renamed the Roman legions after himself. He renamed the months of the year after himself. And then he renamed Rome itself. Think about what that means. Centuries of history. The city that built the ancient world. And one morning you wake up, and it's called Commodiana, and objecting to that had a price. The Senate had to announce this in public. With straight faces, they managed it. But it didn't stop there. He renamed the Roman Navy after himself. He renamed the city's grain supply after himself. He renamed the Roman people, officially on imperial documents, the Commodiani, his people. Think about what it means to live inside that. Every document, every announcement, every official ceremony, his name everywhere, inescapable. And anyone who hesitated, anyone who forgot to use the new names, anyone who was seen rolling their eyes, was taking a risk they might not survive. The Senate understood this perfectly. So did the military. So did the merchants. So did the priests. An entire empire, millions of people, performing loyalty to a man who had lost his grip on reality. Because the alternative was worse. The arena was always the center of it. This isn't legend. This isn't rumor. Cassius Dio was a senator. He was sitting in those stands. These are his notes. Dio records that Commodus fought in the Colosseum 735 times. 735 times. He always won. He always won because his opponents were selected specifically to lose. Men who had lost limbs in real wars. Men who could barely walk. He fought them with full equipment. They got whatever they were given. Usually not much. The applause that rose from the Colosseum wasn't admiration, it was survival. Every clap was a prayer. Please don't let him look at me. Dio writes about being forced to cheer. The senators had to applaud, had to call out his titles, had to pretend this was impressive, while he killed disabled men for sport. But even that wasn't the worst of it. Commodus had people with no legs brought into the arena. He tied them together at the waist. He gave them sponges instead of weapons, and he beat them to death with his club. Then he walked out of the arena. The crowd cheered. The senators applauded. Hercules had won again. Dio writes that he and the other senators chewed on their laurel wreaths to stop themselves from laughing. Not because it was funny, because the alternative was showing their real reaction, and that would have gotten them killed. Dio records one more detail from the arena. After one particular session, Commodus had killed several men and animals. He walked to the senators' section. He stood in front of them. He said nothing. He just looked. One senator later wrote that in that moment he was certain he was about to die. That Commodus was deciding, right there in front of everyone, whether any of them would leave the arena alive that day. He moved on. They survived. But that moment, that silence, stayed with every senator in that building for the rest of their lives. This is what 12 years under Commodus felt like. Not just the violence, not just the madness, the waiting, the not knowing, the silence before he looked away. Outside the arena, Commodus ran the empire, or didn't run it. He handed governance to a series of favorites, men he trusted, then suspected, then executed. Trust, suspicion, execution. Trust, suspicion, execution. The treasury his father had built through decades of careful governance was disappearing, one arena appearance at a time. He charged the city for each performance. The arena was not a hobby. It was a business. Meanwhile, the arena continued. Commodus fought ostriches. He cut off their heads with crescent-shaped arrows, then walked over holding a severed ostrich head, looking directly at the senators in the stands. What the senators saw in that moment wasn't an emperor. It was a child who had lost control, holding a bloody bird's head and grinning. The message was clear. You could be next. He also fought a giraffe, a hippopotamus, elephants. He killed bears, tigers, and lions, often 100 animals in a single session. The senators chewed their laurel wreaths again and applauded. By 192 AD, 12 years into his reign, Rome was exhausted. The treasury was nearly empty. The Senate had lost dozens of members to execution. The military was loyal only because they were paid, and payments were becoming irregular. Even the people, the ordinary Romans who had once cheered for him, had gone quiet. There's only so long you can cheer for something like that. And the people closest to Commodus could see it too. His mistress, his chamberlain, his praetorian prefect. 3 people who had managed him, protected him, cleaned up after him for years. They were tired. And they'd found something that changed everything. A list. By 192 AD, the people closest to Commodus had had enough. His mistress Marcia, his chamberlain Eclectus, his praetorian prefect Latus. 3 people who had served him, protected him, managed him for years. They found a document, a list Commodus had written. Names of people he planned to execute next. Their names were on it. They moved immediately. The poison was supposed to be enough. It wasn't. Commodus vomited, staggered, and kept breathing. They had one option left. A man named Narcissus, Commodus's own wrestling partner, his training companion, the man he had trusted with his body, was brought into the bedroom. Commodus was weakened, lying in his bath. Narcissus strangled him. The Emperor of Rome, son of Marcus Aurelius, Hercules reborn, strangled in his bath by his own wrestling partner. On New Year's Eve, December 31st, the last night of the year, Rome went to sleep with one emperor. It woke up with none. He was 31 years old. The wrestler walked out of the room. The conspiracy was over. Commodus was dead, but nobody knew yet. The palace continued its night. Guards at their posts, servants in their quarters, Rome sleeping outside the walls, completely unaware that everything had just changed. Marcia, Eclectus, and Latus sat in that chamber and waited for morning. They had to get the story straight. They had to decide what Rome would be told. Natural causes. He died in his sleep. That was the official story. Nobody believed it. Nobody asked questions either. The Senate was informed the next morning. Their reaction was not grief. The men who had applauded him in the arena for 12 years, who had chanted his titles with straight faces, who had chewed their laurel wreaths to stay alive, they were now chanting his name as a curse. His statues were pulled down across the empire. His name was chiseled off inscriptions. The months he had renamed were given back their original names. Rome became Rome again. The new emperor, Pertinax, reversed most of Commodus's policies in his first days. He lasted 87 days before the Praetorian Guard killed him too. Rome was not done with its chaos, not even close. Commodus ruled for 12 years. He fought in the arena 735 times. He renamed Rome, its months, its legions, its people after himself. He killed senators, advisors, disabled men, and animals in equal measure and with equal indifference. He was the son of the greatest emperor Rome ever produced, and he threw all of it away for a lion skin, a club, and an arena full of people who had to cheer whether they wanted to or not. His father wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Commodus never read that part. When he died, Rome didn't lose an emperor. It lost a monster. But here's the real question. Did his death save Rome? Or was the real collapse only just beginning? Subscribe. We're going darker.